So we'll assume that the plot's underway at the moment. I think this is a very good opportunity to introduce ourselves. My name's John. I'm the author of the game, Through the Hedgerow, and I'm going to be running a scenario today that is called Shelter from the Storm, and should bring our Bryanites into the 1940s during Britain in the Second World War. You want to take it in turns to introduce yourself? Let's go first, Carl.
Yeah, so I'm Carl. I've been a long-term role player, especially with John, for many years. And today I will be playing Dankworth Darkly, who is a Tom Noddin, a Victorian gravedigger Tom Noddin. So a spooky little character with an unhealthy obsession with the dead.
Good. And Nick?
So my name's Nick. I've been role-playing probably far too long, and with John himself. And today I'll be playing a character called Wombard, who is a Saxon warlock who happens to just be carrying around a hive of bees, and we'll go into that in the story.
And Simon?
Yeah, I'm Simon. I've never met any of you ever before, apart from one of you who I've messaged somewhat. Tonight, do you need to know how long I've been role-playing? A very long time. Tonight I'm going to be playing Wally. Wally is a chap who had a rather nasty time in the Great War and has never quite come back from it.
Yeah, indeed. He's a motley with some powers of pranks and humour. So, in this particular story, Wally, this is setting in your home age. You know, you live in the 1940s when the light isn't calling you on adventures into other periods in history. So we're going to go through the conundrum first of all, and this will happen to you in visions and dreams, and you'll make your way to the place you've seen in the conundrum, and then the other Bryanites will emerge from the hedgerow into the year 1941, and you'll all be able to meet up together. So it's worth bearing in mind in this particular scenario that Wally here is from this era. And although the other two Bryanites, the glamour will make you appear to onlookers to look unremarkable, and you travel. This ain't your first journey through time. You're kind of aware of the 1940s. It doesn't give you culture shock or anything, although it's fun to role-play characters that take a kind of humorous interest or incredulous interest in some of the devices and behaviours you see. But you can fundamentally function in the 1940s. Nonetheless, Wally has got kind of on-the-ground knowledge. This is his home turf. And so, Simon, you could ask me, you know, what does Wally know about this place?
This actually is completely his home turf, will be on the outskirts of the village. Etc.
Oh yeah, I mean you passed through this village before, you know. It's not like your backyard. It's not like you know it intimately, but you know its environs, and you might know some of the more celebrated residents. Yeah. A scenario always begins with a thing called the conundrum, and it would often be nice to do a little bit of role play with the Bryanites and their lifestyle before the light calls them. And we could look into Dankworth Darkly, and we could role play a little bit with him exhuming corpses for his investigations, or burying corpses for his career, or engaging in all sorts of nighttime escapades. And we could look into Wombard in the Dark Ages, engaging in wizardry and confronting invading Danes, and Wally escaping, you know, beating from the bailiffs and dodging the squire's men and surviving off the land. But I think on this particular occasion, we'll just kind of jump straight in and get the main story going. So, Dankworth Darkly and Wombard, you're both of you going to be plucked out of your age by the light. There will be a call that comes to you, usually in a familiar way, and you get some, but not much, warning that you're going to disappear and find yourself in the hedgerow between centuries. when we come out of the hedgerow into 1941, do a little dice roll to see how much equipment you've got. That kind of represents how much warning you got. And if it turns out you've barely got any gear, then we can pretty much assume you were plucked out of the bath. And if you've got lots of gear, then we can barely assume that you got plenty of notice and you got yourself prepared and ready for adventure. So the hedgerow itself appears to be a maze, and the first person to enter it, because you're the furthest away in time, will be you, Wombard, entering the hedgerow from the Dark Ages. And the hedgerow in the ancient past really does seem to be a journey through a forest, hemmed in on either side with thorns and briars and the branches of the trees crisscrossing overhead and blocking out almost all the light. And you come into a clearing, and this is the first vision of the conundrum. And Simon, Wally will see this in his dream. He won't need to physically tread this pathway. And the place, Nick, is a ruined village that you walk into. It's clearly been sacked by some sort of war. The buildings are just burnt skeletal frames. There's some bits of thatch still burning. There are bodies strewn about, skewered by spears or sometimes impaled on them. And everywhere around you are the ravens cawing and croaking from the rooftops, such as remain of this shattered community. And just as your eyes take in the kind of full devastation of what's happened here, there's a roar from the sky, and swooping down out of the clouds is what to you seems to be a big metal bird, but you'll recognize it as one of those aeroplanes that they have in the 20th century. And it roars pretty low over the village, propellers, single pilot aircraft with British markings on it, and then soars up into the clouds again. And its appearance and the noise it makes scatters the ravens, who go cawing and flapping off into the distance and disperse. Some insights from this, you would get that the village is an important location for the mission ahead, and perhaps its destruction, maybe, is something to be averted. The ravens is always a sure sign that your nemesis here is the Raven Margrave, the emissary of death, with his usually undead minions. And the aeroplane, maybe that's just telling you that it's the 1940s, but maybe that might mean something else. It did scatter the ravens, so perhaps it indicates some form of help. If you press on further, this is where at the edge of the ruined village you'll meet Dankworth Darkly. You're now coming from the 1840s, Carl, so this is where you join the path. And the journey through the hedgerow now is starting to look a little bit more like a passage through a hedge maze rather than through a forest. Through the path in front of you, and you're both walking side by side here, bit of catching up, or maybe it's just Wombard, Darkly. But through the path in front of you, a figure comes crashing out of the thorns and briars and stands swaying in the pathway in front of you. Wombard, you'll react with some alarm at this because he's clearly a gigantic Danish warrior. These people are devastating England in your own time. You can see he's got a big runic pendant around his neck, a Thor's hammer. He's got some mail and a shattered shield kind of pinned to one arm. But he looks in a terrible way. His long blonde hair is all matted with blood, and a great ribbon of the stuff runs from a cut on his forehead over one eye. He is pale underneath the bloody wounds. Looks like he can barely stand. He doesn't notice you. And then after him come the cawing of the ravens. These things come swooping out of the branches of the trees. They peck at his face. He throws up his hands to try and ward them off, and he stumbles on again, disappearing through the thorns of the hedgerow and off the path with the ravens croaking after him. Normally this second vision represents somebody with a destiny, somebody really important that you're trying to find or protect or save. Okay, there's a clearing up ahead. This now looks like a grass clearing, quite nicely cropped. There's little bits of grey statuary dotted around, and a big tree in the centre, you'd think an ash. Sat under the tree is a robed figure with a hood pulled down over his head, and in his long, gnarled fingers, he's got a whittling knife and some pieces of wood, and he's cutting and chopping away at the wood, making something, working on a piece of crap. This is an opportunity actually for you to interact. What do you want to do or say?
Is the wood that he's whittling the same wood as the tree, by any chance? Is that distinguishable, or is it not? Obviously, I know wood's...
I think you know your trees pretty well. Yeah, it looks like ash, which is a very straight tree and is often used for sort of spears and quite sort of long, straight kind of things. He seems to be whittling it into little mannequins, figurines. He will look up, and you can see his eyes glitter underneath the cowl. You get an impression of a long, hooked sort of nose and a beard with a lot of grey in it.
Ask him what's with the figurines.
He holds them out to you. One of them is clearly a man, quite nicely carved, looks like a warrior, like a chess piece almost. And the other one, a queen, if it's a chess piece. Look, he says, for the unlikely lovers. Here, take them, take them.
Oh, thank him. So thank you very much. And
One in each hand. He then rises, smacks down his robe, straightens and cracks his back as if he's done a very good day's work by creating these and handing them over to you, and starts striding away back the way you've come from. Do you wish to detain him or allow him to go?
I think allow him to go is my personal view. I don't know about you, Carl.
Your mortals are queer folk with their little mannequins and their odd rituals. I'm only interested in the ending of these things, the parting of two lovers, not the commensuration of your vile unions.
Nicely put. And I think we can take from this then that the bringing together of a pair of lovers is going to be an important event in the mission. Okay. You don't have to proceed on forward. Instead, you detect a kind of change in atmosphere in the clearing as soon as the old man has left. It gets colder, and there's a sort of dimming of the light. Looking up, you can see what you'd never noticed before, that there are things in the branches of the ash tree, and its bodies that are dangling from them. Many corpses have been hanged on this tree, at all layers of it, and now they are twisting slowly in the faint breeze. The ropes creak, and the corpses themselves loll with bulging eyes and gigantic blackened tongues.
Now this, beekeeper, is much more my speed. See, they're not dead. They're the unquiet dead, as I use my spidery form to scale the side of the trees and jiggle one of the ropes.
Very good. And of course, jiggling the ropes does indeed have the effect of causing the corpses to start twitching violently and gibbering nonsensically, rolling their eyes in the most horrible fashion. This does indeed indicate that the undead, perhaps particularly liches, who are sort of zombies really, are likely to be the main adversaries that you are facing.
Shout out to was it Dudley? Sorry, your character's
Darkly.
Dankworth, Darkly.
Come on, Dankwood. We haven't got time to make webs. Let's get on.
Good.
If you so choose.
The trail then leads out of this corpse tree and concludes in front of a chapel. The chapel is hemmed around by trees, so much so that it wouldn't be possible to get to any of the windows and look through them to see what's inside. The doors are closed, but a beautiful song emanates from within, sung by a small choir, boys' voices raised to that tremulous melody. And the door is guarded by a knight. Not just any knight, though. Clearly a lady knight, slender and tall, with her long blonde hair braided and a serious impression in her pale grey eyes as she studies you both. If you would enter this place, she says, and a voice carries towards you like a clear bell ringing, you must swear to protect it. Do you so swear?
I'm a sucker for an oath, as you know, so I'll swear towards it.
Yes. She says, on holy ground, the power of love will aid you. You are bound by love's troth, and I charge you not to refuse the request of any woman you meet in this mission. At that, the doors swing open, but you can only see a pale light and swirling vapors inside. Enter, if you dare.
So start walking. So go on.
No.
I would say start walking through, elbow Dankley and say, now that's a queen bee if I've ever seen one, young man.
A queen bee indeed, and we must not refuse her request. The quicker we are done with this business, the quicker we can get back to our vacations and
stepping
avocations.
into the chapel causes you to leave the hedgerow. Now, here's the thing. This final thing has given you the ban for this mission, which is a kind of condition the light has set for you to follow. The light always has some weird kind of restriction or instruction, and in this case, do not refuse any direct request from a woman. If you do that, if you are requested to do something by a woman and you don't obey it, then that will kind of draw the dark's attention and empower the dark. Only once. I mean, once you've broken the ban, you've broken the ban. You know, after that, do as you please. But that's something to try to avoid doing. The chapel tells you that a holy place of some sort will be quite kind of crucial to resolving the mission successfully. Okay. Now I'm going to put a little thing into the Dropbox folder called Conundrum that will have a little summary of what we just went through there. So if anybody starts feeling that they'd kind of like to have a bit of a reminder, then that should be something they can have a look at. However, at the moment, just find where I've gone and saved it. I will put it in there in due course. So as you step through the doors and out of the hedgerow, you find yourself at a crossroads. And this is where you'll meet Simon, Wally. Wally, you've hiked a long way. You've gone without food. You are now feeling tired and footsore, but you probably had a little nap. And you've probably managed to...
a hedgerow of some description.
That's it, yeah. You've probably managed to pinch some pie or bag of pheasant or something like that. And it's filled your belly, and you've been waiting at this crossroads a long time before there's a rustling in the undergrowth, and these two unlikely figures step out. The Victorian spider with a buttoned-up collar and a heavy pair of spectacles and a big stovepipe hat, if I recall the description, and Wombat dressed in his kind of hempen robes, carrying a big stick with a cleft at the end of it, which has got a beehive in it. The bees are pretty sleepy because it's kind of
Thank God for that.
Yeah. But they buzz around frantically. Now, we've got a few things to do, right? You need to work out how much equipment you've got. So you're going to have to roll a d6. Obviously, Wally, you will have to do this. You're a motley. You're vowed to holy poverty.
I have
you don't start with anything. But the other two can both roll a d6 and then look at your little equipment list and choose how many pieces of the gear that could be available to you you're going to have.
So am I right in thinking that I always keep the beehive? That doesn't count.
So that's a given, but
Yeah.
that doesn't count towards your time.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you get?
I got one.
Okay, you were clearly plucked out of the bath, weren't you?
Yes.
Right. Have a little look at your equipment. Just have a look for something that you had with you in the bath or that you think might be useful that you managed to grab before you were dragged into the hedgerow. I need more time! And and add that to your character sheet. That's what you've got with you. Carl, what's Dankworth looking at?
Well, I've got 4. So,
Right. That's, you've had some time to prepare. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was on a bit of a hunt. So I've got my my Chirurgeon's kit, my medical kit, full of all sorts of syringes, far too many saws than is sensible, some embalming fluid, as well as various poultices and medical gubbins.
Yep.
I think I'd also have a steak with me, the wild garlic, and I think a flint and steel. Or I think that'll be. I think I was on a hunt when I was
Okay.
disturbed. I was going to lay rest the unquiet dead.
Oh, did you say you were bringing? Are you bringing any of your tea making equipment?
I was very, very tempted until I realised that my companions have very little in the way of matching kit.
No, that's true. I mean, it also takes up quite a bit if you want the tea and the
kit.
teapot and the tinder and flint to start it up. That's 3 pieces of equipment there.
If
be
we'd
able to
had
sit
more
down
between us,
Yeah.
I would have been very, very tempted to
Yeah.
take at least half of the equipment.
But here in 1941, there might be quite a lot of tea knocking about, so maybe you don't need to bring your own. Good, and then Nick, you'll need to roll a d4 to see how many of the spells in your grimoire you've actually got available for you to use, and you'll also need to choose a spell that is stored in your beehive, ready for instant casting.
Good news is I rolled a little bit better this time, so I've got 3.
Okay.
So
3 of your 4 spells, you're really just in the business of choosing the one that you don't have.
Yeah. I think I'll hold off. So basically, I think I'll take from what we've got the Sentinel of Camelot, Rymer's Ragged Robe, and Rhiannon's Silver Key. And I think in the beehive at the moment, we'll have Rhiannon's Silver Key set up.
Good. Okay. Will you be having that set up as a Dwemer or as a?
I think a Dwemer. Yeah,
I think a Dwemer, because Dweemers are so cool and Hexes are just not. So so it's as a Dwemer. Remember, you can cast that at will once. No roll needed. Oh, good. It should already be in the file. The Conundrum folder should already be in the file, in the Dropbox. So hopefully, if you look in the Dropbox, you'll see a little Word document called Conundrum. Okay then, good. Final thing, we need to think about the dark and how busy that's been while you were heading here. Each of you needs to roll your doom die, and assuming you roll 1, 2, or 3, that's fine. But if anybody rolls a 4, then the doom then the nemesis will start at a d4.
I've rolled a 4.
Yes, I rolled a 4 as well.
Okay then. So I will get ready to change my little background. You notice my background has got a little die symbol with a 0 on it. That's about to change.
So John, while you're doing that, just to let you know, I think sticking with the idea of being plucked from the bath, I think the only thing that someone would have out of my equipment near a bath is probably the tiffin, so I'm grabbing that.
You're grabbing the tiffin, the seed cake.
Yeah.
Okay then. Right.
Not
Never mind about
cake.
bows, arrows, daggers, anything like that. The only thing you've got is the seed cake you were topping into while you were sat in the tub. You thought, blessed peace, a moment to relax with rubber ducky and the seed cake, and you had a choice as the light grabbed you, rubber ducky or seed cake, and you went for the seed cake.
Always.
Okay, so I'd like to think that you are standing there soaking wet with suds in your long beard, and of course the bees. Now the bees have got an oath for you. This is it. Here in this world, there are clearly people who've made terrible life choices. You humans, you're just not industrious. You don't work together. You need to find somebody who's not a proper functioning part of the hive and get them to do what they should do. Get them to be busy and industrious. Busy. And this is your arcane quest from your grimoire. So you're now under oath, which is nice. And if you're able to fulfill that, you can claim a lovely reward from the lot. Looking for somebody who isn't playing their proper role in the community or in their job, or you can interpret it in a lot of ways and get them somehow or another to sort themselves out. You can persuade me, interpret it how you wish. I'll probably go along with your good judgment. Okay, let's get down to the story. Here we go then. So, standing at the crossroads, and there has clearly been an air raid. Wombard, I mean, you'll flinch because you'll be thinking, you are the wild hunt or something like that, and throw yourself down into the mud. But the distant, thrumming of high-level aeroplanes and the boom, boom, boom of anti-aircraft barrage will gradually fade away. The anti-aircraft barrage is coming off from the west, and you can see flickers and flares on the horizon as the guns fire there. There's an area of moorland which has clearly got some sort of military base on it, surrounded by those big barrage balloons to stop aircraft flying there. Then from far behind you to the east, where there must be some big city, in fact, Wally, you absolutely know there's a big town over there, Micklebury. There's the distant air raid siren blares out for the all clear. The crossroad itself has got a signpost standing on it and giving you some directions. Let me just find it. Yeah, the signpost reads Micklebury 5 miles. That's the east. Wally, that's where you've come from. So we're not likely to be heading back there. Drakemore Station, 1 mile to the west, and that takes you in the direction of where the military guns were firing. Henley Hoff, 3 miles to the north. Wally, you know that that's a small village with a very nice church and a rather good pub with some very good beer. Yeah.
Maybe somebody stand me a pint sometime.
Yes, indeed. And Market Harrowby, 10 miles south. That's another large town and quite a distance away from our adventure today. Immediately to the south is a steep and rocky promontory known as Lazar's Bluff, hereabouts. And there seems to be some sort of light up there, which there really shouldn't be. Looks like a bonfire is dying down. It doesn't look easy to climb, though. There are a couple of hills to the north, Henley Hill and a rather more rugged Grimble Seat, and the road to Henley Hoff cuts between those two pieces of high ground. It is about an hour before dawn on a cold March morning in 1944. Okay, chaps, have a little chat and discussion. What do we think we need to be doing?
Oh, I thought you'd never get here. It's perishing out here. And those sirens and everything. How long have the sirens and the bombing been going on? Have I been?
Not very long, although there have been a lot of them recently over the last month. It looks as though this area has received a bit of attention from the Nazis. But this one seems to have been a rather timid attack. The cannons fired for about 15 minutes or so, and then a little clear rang. So the whole thing didn't probably last 40 minutes.
Well, the halfwit and the beekeeper. Fantastic to work with you both again. And, well, we'll see what we can drag out of this business with the pair of you then. Shall we?
I dropped my roll up to the ground and stub it out. So when I say a roll up, it was once somebody's roll up, but I picked it up.
One of those ones that have been put together from 5 previous people's roll-ups. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You know when you're smoking one of those. Mr. Atticott again.
I remember them well.
Charmed. Many hands make light work, or work for the light, if you will.
Boom, boom.
Don't get it.
No, I didn't expect you would.
Right, folks. Thinking with our player character hats on, then what do we think the first course of action should be?
Well, I should say to defer to Wally because it's his home age, and you know the geography of the area much better.
Sorry, just to interject, is Wally aware of the conundrum as well? I'm assuming he is.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Wally's been tormented by horrible dreams in which this conundrum has haunted him. So he's familiar with it all as well.
Okay, so Which villages have we got around here?
Henleyhoff is the main village, 3 miles to the north. That's an hour's walk. You'd be getting there. I've just put the conundrum into the team chat, by the way. That would be about an hour's walk. You could kind of hot foot it and really march and give people a little kind of outcome check to see whether that was, exhausting or not. And then you could perhaps get there in about half an hour. That's the road that goes north between the two hills. It should be a pretty sleepy place, and it should be just about starting for farming labours at sunrise. So you'll be arriving at about the same time people are starting to turn out of their doors. Although, of course, the air raid will have disrupted their night's sleep.
I'd say that we go to the village. And it was the first thing we just saw in my vision, and I'm sure that you saw it as well. And we'll see whether there be doom coming upon it and whether we can avert it.
Yep.
There is, and there is also that queer fire behind us. I mean, who lights a fire at early doors on top of
during an air raid? Yeah. What you know about Lazar's Bluff is not much, because it's a bare rocky hill. Climbing it from this side would be a pretty Herculean task. A journey around the side of the hill to find the southern slopes would be a little bit easier to ascend. You've never been up there. It has a bit of a dark reputation.
Oh, dark reputation. Let's get to a village, I reckon, and see whether we'll find some milk or something along the way.
Right. And do you want to be travelling at a normal walking amble? That will have you getting to the village at about sunrise, 7 o'clock. Or do we want to hot foot it and try and be getting there before you would expect anybody to be up and about while it's still dark?
I'll defer to the other chaps because my footwear isn't that great. It's got several holes in it in places which is letting the water in at the very least.
I think the estimation is we're going to get there with a fairly normal pace for when everyone's getting up. It makes more sense than trying to run in there and get there quicker, because maybe people are used to sirens. I know it's a big loud one, or might be coming, gone back to sleep or whatever. So probably just normal pace seems more sensible, in my opinion.
Good. In that case, we can proceed on. If you have a look again in the Dropbox that I set aside for you, and I'll also put one into the chat, we've got a little player character map of the Henleyhoff PC map. I've just added it to the chat. Uploading, please wait, it says. It contains most of the information that if you don't know it yourself, Wally knows it and can tell you. Both of you, Dankwith and Wombod, I mean, you've been to this area before in your own age. I think that, Dankwith, you might have come by the Church of St. Cecilia on some occasion to investigate tombstones, but you won't have had much reason to pay much attention to the place.
No.
Wombod, back when you were here, there was an abbey, not a church, and it was just a little speck in the middle of a thick wood. So seeing it all now cleared and farmland is quite a change. So sunrise is approaching, creeping across the fields. There's stirring going on in the village. Nobody's had much of a sleep. They were turned out of their beds at about 5 o'clock by the air raid sirens. They'll have scampered down to their cellars or made their way to a kind of community air raid shelter, and then trooped back again at about the time when you were all gathered at the crossroads. So many of them won't have even bothered trying to get another hour's sleep. They'll have sat in their kitchens having cups of tea and waiting for the day to begin. What sort of things are to be seen? Well, you're passing between the two big hills. On your right, you've got Henley Hill. And Wally, you've been up there in past times. Quite a nice rounded slope, good views of the surrounding countryside, and you've got the sunrise just peeping over it at the moment. It's a lovely little place. North of that, there's a big area of farmland, South Acre, which is clearly being prepared for a kind of spring harvest of radishes, it looks like. As you're approaching the village, there's a group of farm labourers who are coming out of the village and making their way into the fields. And what's slightly surprising is that the voices that carry through the kind of early morning air towards you are of women. All of these labourers are young women, land girls, with their hair done up in spotted handkerchiefs and shawls, carrying a few spades, and one of them is driving a rather rickety-looking and small tractor with a kind of plough-like device behind it for turning up the soil. They seem to be sort of joking away. They seem like a merry bunch of friends, but they haven't really noticed you. You're coming up down the road between the hedgerows, out of the shadows between the hills. So you don't engage with them. They will make their way onwards into the fields.
I think just carry on for the moment. Lead into it. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Wombard, if you're looking to get entangled in oaths, then a group of women wouldn't be a bad idea now, would it? As you can't refuse them. Now, can you? I, for one, would be a little more discerning and a little more cautious.
Indeed, you must remember that it's not turning away a request. If you're not there to get a request, job's done.
Exactly my point.
Okay, you can amble on past the girls. They seem to be sort of arguing over the tractor. One of them is taking a little bit of a kind of break before labours begin and has got a cigarette lit and is leaning on the fence and kind of notices you guys walking past with a kind of raised eyebrow. She's got her hair done up in a big bright red neckerchief and has got similarly bright lipstick on, even though it's day working in the fields. This is a girl who clearly likes to, be working in the fields and have men looking at her. That is going out lipstick, and it's intended to be seen even while she's working with a spade. Anyway, she takes a big draw on the cigarette and will call out to you. I think probably Wally, with a cry of "Morning, lover."
Hello there, Miss Sweetheart. Can I have a wheeze on that gasper?
Oh, come on over then. She summons you over to the little fence she's leaning on. Hands you the cigarette. You notice she's got brightly painted nails. One of the other girls is sort of wandering up towards her with a rather kind of wearied expression.
That's quite the ruby hue you've got there.
Well, I'd just like to make myself look nice. Here, you wouldn't have anything that goes very well with a gasper, would you? Like a little snifter, something that can set a girl up first thing in the morning, can drive the morning chills away.
Oh, I wish I'd had such a thing as a snifter, but the only thing I've had past my lips in a while was I had to go to near a puddle the other day just to wet my whistle.
Her expression, as she sort of takes in perhaps a little bit of your raggedness and realizes that you're not somebody who's got very much, becomes one of sudden lack of interest. But she does notice Dankworth Darkly stood nearby, and to all impressions, you seem to be a rather grand gentleman. What about your posh friend? She says. He's looked like the sort of person who'd have something licoricey in that big old bag of his. But one of the other girls has come up from the field and calls out to her, saying, Mabel, will you stop pestering the men? You've got some work to do. That shovel isn't just for decoration, you know. Mabel sighs, stubs out her cigarette, says, bye, boys, and wanders back into the field. Her friend, and superior, perhaps, kind of sighs and shakes her head and nods to you all, kind of courteously, but is clearly with the business of whipping these girls up into getting to work nice and early.
Would she be right, Dankworth? Would you have a twist of licorice about you?
No, I don't carry such nonsense, such frivolities. What use is that? It doesn't aid my work at all. You know, I went to medical school. I studied at colleges, under actual doctors. Colleges. I should have letters if I, hadn't had some unfortunate incidences, which led to my current profession, you see. Coroner.
I had a letter once.
He
just shakes his head.
hanging in the air.
Fantastic. I am surprised that you can read and write.
Okay, then.
I said I had a letter once. Didn't say I could read
Proceed
it.
on.
Fantastic.
The road you're following leads up to a bridge over the river. You've got a little a garage and motor repair shop labeled Dale's Garage Motor Repairs to the left, and a village shop to the right that seems to be doubling up as a post office. That is just opening up. There's a light on inside. A young lad seems to be dragging out a collection of newspapers and preparing for his deliveries. Further on over the bridge, you can see there's a village hall and the big church, stone, rather grand and ancient-looking structure. And further on out of town, what do you remember, is the pub. And you seem to remember it was something to do with Charn, the Charn's Arms, the Charnley Arms. That was the name of it. Yeah, Jenks was the landlord, you recall, who was a fella without too many principles, as every good landlord should be.
Yeah, and there may have been a night I found myself in there and maybe I had a go at the drip tray or something.
So,
Here's
where
a
do we want to be
capital chap,
heading
is
to?
old
Have a
Jenks.
little look at the map and decide where our first port of call could be. The town, of course, was going to start interacting with you, but I'd just like to know what your
As
plan
we're
is.
going in, John, I'm just keeping an eye out for any ravens, anything like that.
Yeah, well, I was about to. It's night time and they should be sleeping, but the sunlight is stealing across the town. You've already got the bird song of blackbirds and thrushes making quite a merry old noise, particularly up on the big hill behind you, Grimble's Seat. Quite a lot of bird song coming on there. But the harsh cawing of ravens is definitely growing. There's a racket of them coming from Grimble's Seat. You can see that lining the top of the hill. There's a copse of trees. And ravens are just swirling and swarming around that, almost as if they're building up to come flooding down the slopes in a big wave and spreading out across the town. I'd like to be to hand when that happens. You notice that there seems to be a flight of stone steps goes up the side of the hill to the summit, and what looks like a cave at the bottom with a big iron gate across it, across the entrance. So, what do you think, chaps? What's a likely destination? Up the hill, into the cave, the village shop, Dale's auto repair, the church,
I think
or onto the pub? Although it's a bit early for that to be open.
I should like to scout the church, I think.
Mm.
As this looks like our conundrum destination, this looks like the place to defend. So the sooner we can scout it and see what advantage we can take, the better.
All agreed?
Yeah.
Just one last thing. Could we have a quick go by that village shop if he's put the papers out? And somebody who might have a reading about them might be able to tell us what the headlines on it might be.
Oh, a local rag would be perfect.
Yeah. Okay then. So,
if you find yourself to buying one as well, it's a good firelighter.
did anybody bring a bag of coins with them as one of their items of equipment?
No.
No, in that case you don't.
I'm a spider. Like.
No, a bag of coins is turns itself into whatever currency of the age you're in, but it's a piece of gear that you have to choose to bring with you.
Has he put the papers out and gone back inside the shop?
He's brought out a big satchel of newspapers, and a young lad has come angling up and is clearly supposed to go off and deliver them. But he isn't. He's sort of leaning against the wall at the back of the shop and scuffing the back of his boots in the mud, and is clearly just delaying getting on with this work for as long as possible. Maybe trying to warm himself up a bit as well, because he's pretty chill.
Yeah,
He's a surly-looking fella. Young boy, really, of about 8 or 9, you think, with a big mop of dark hair and a rather kind of sullen expression. He's watching you both, you three as well.
I'm gonna say,
Yeah.
young man, can we have a look at one of your papers?
He sort of grabs his bag and puts it over his shoulder. Say, cost ya?
All right.
What you got?
What?
He comes ambling down from the shop, a bit of a swagger to him, but he's looking at you all very intently. Now, here's a little thing. We're going to actually do a little bit of dice rolling here. This lad is going to be a challenge, not like a hugely difficult one, but a challenge nonetheless. He's shrewd, do you see? And he might well be able to make a glamour check to see through the glamour and notice what you are, which in Wally's case isn't much. In Wombard's case, suddenly marks you out as deeply strange and draws some attention. In Dankworth's case, marks you out as being a many-armed monster.
Yeah.
We really don't want that happening. Okay, then. He's would normally be threat level 1, but you outnumber him, right? So and we're going to reduce that to threat level 0. You only have to make one roll against him. So while you are talking, what dice are you going to be rolling to stop him from noticing you? You know, if you go with charm, that's because of the things you're saying. If you go with wits, it's because of how you're distracting or disguising yourself. If you've got any items of equipment, like concealing garb, you can, of course, use that. And concealing garb is worth a D8, something like this. So, what do you think? These dice will then, of course, exhaust. This is a
So
challenge.
I don't need to worry about this because I'm pretty much of the.
True, you are, but obviously it will still cause you to lose a bit of resolve because, you know, there's a kind of mental strain of dealing with curious and suspicious persons. So you might still want to throw a dice up just to kind of soak some of the peril that's coming your way.
So is this a challenge or a check?
Yes, it is a challenge, yes.
Okay. So what I am very tempted to do is to I was tempted to roll my my character trait of patience.
Okay. Yeah. That'll be a D4.
It is. But then again,
why is it? If you tell me why it's relevant, how's it part of the drama?
Well, I was taking it the wider idea of etiquette, frankly, but showing the boy more patience than I think he's worth. But in another case, I think what I might be more willing to do is use my charm or wits, and I would use my many hands in order to get an edge to reduce the die. So effectively, I would give him some sort of a tongue lashing. In regard to respecting his elders and his betters, and he should damn well hurry up.
Look off your face.
He should damn well hurry up and give us one of those papers.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, then. So you're going to be rolling then your charm, and you're also going to be rolling your trait die because you can always roll trait dice.
Yeah.
You know, and you're going to be rolling both of them. Do you want to roll them both just now?
Well, I'm going to drop my charm, which is a D8 to a D6, in order to generate an edge, and then another edge from my many hands.
Right.
Is that right?
I think that's particularly so if you're, for example, using your hands to sort of like, straighten up his hair and
brush his shoes off and
sort of blinding flurry of hands, stand up straight, and this sort of thing. Yes, that seems fair enough. Yeah. So roll the 2 dice then? Was it D64?
Yep. And we got 2 4s.
Great. And I'll tell you what the peril loss is in a moment. Nick, what about yourself? How are you avoiding or dealing with this kid's rather hostile curiosity?
I think it's going to be charm as well. I say charm. Yeah, no, I think charm as well. Maybe sort of like while Dankworth's giving him a rough up, he's not too bad, leave the old, little scratter alone sort of thing. That kind of
good cop, bad cop routine.
Yeah, that kind of, yes, exactly, yeah.
I like. Good.
Rod 5.
Good. And Wally, Now, again, you don't have very much to lose on this, so if you've got a character trait that seems relevant, you can just add it, just be rolling that. And have a look, Nick, to see if any of your traits are relevant to this as well, because you can always roll a trait along with.
No. I'm just gonna say to him that, like, I'm just gonna distract him by offering to deliver a couple of the papers for him, and I'll have a read of it along the way. They've all this is proper old school. They've got the addresses written on the top of it.
Yeah, they will do. Yes, yeah.
Yep. So I'm gonna roll my wits for that.
Okay, then good. What'd you get?
And 2.
Right. Okay, then I will roll for the peril you're losing here. This lad is quite a crafty character, so it's a D6. Right? And I've rolled a 3, right? Which means that, Wally, you lose a point of resolve, because you rolled 2 for your soak, but it was 3 for the peril. So 1 resolve is lost. But he doesn't make a glamour check against you because there's nothing to see. You are what you appear. Both of you other two, you rolled something higher than the peril. So none of you lose any resolve, and he won't get to make the peril check. The challenge ends, okay? There are 2 edges in this, which means we've got a very good success out of this. This will send this lad on his way. You're not going to be pestered by him again for a while, which is good, because he's clearly a local ne'er-do-well. It also means you've gotten a newspaper, Wally, in hand, and you've also picked up his name, Rupert Forrest, from the Forest Farm. Yeah, there's been some reporting. Oh, here's an interesting one, that apparently just a week ago, German paratroopers landed in the county, particularly in the region, it says here, of Henleyhoff and Charnley Wood. And there was a firefight with British soldiers from the Drakemore camp. None of the paratroopers survived, but locals are being advised to keep a close lookout for strange characters who might be hiding in their potting sheds and garages. So that's kind of bad news, because it could mean that you're going to get a more suspicious reception than you would wish for. Yeah, but definitely, this was a week ago, this paratrooper attack on the area. It also mentions that the commander of the bait is a Major Burnside, Scotsman. Any other things going on in the local news? There's a little article of a sermon from the vicar of Henleyhoff. Yeah, it's his name is Lumley, Reverend Lumley, and there's a choral recital coming up, in which he's going to be performing a piece of music that he himself has composed. He seems to be a little bit of a keen local composer. The piece of music itself is doesn't mean much to you. Song for St. Cecilia's Day, based on a poem by a poet called Dryden. The rest is football and atrocities overseas. Yes.
Oh well, we can take that back.
There's a crossword.
Never a crossword. We can take that to Old Forest when we're passing.
Okay, you said you were heading over the bridge and into the churchyard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it is now properly dawn. There's still a kind of haze in the air, dew on the grass. On this northern side of the river, the village seems to be a little grander. The houses are a little bigger, a little bit more bourgeois, if you like. And many of the curtains and shutters are still closed. These people don't have to get up at first light and attend to farm animals and fields. You can see that in the churchyard itself, the grass is quite neatly kept. And look at this, Dankworth. There is something that shouldn't be happening. One of the graves has been disturbed.
Aha! A perfect opportunity to ply my trade. Come, as I scuttle across the dewy grass. Scuttle across the dewy grass. There's a couple more legs than there should be in my glee.
Yeah, sure enough, there's a recent gravestone here with unusually a German name on it, of Dieter Weiss. Or Weiss. Born 1901, died 1941. But the grave ground around it is thoroughly disturbed. The pots of flowers, fresh, have been knocked over. The earth is scattered everywhere, and there's quite a deep hole going down to the coffin.
Oh, I'd immediately leap into the hole. Immediately leap into the hole and then draw up to full height in order to read the gravestone.
Good. The coffin itself is smashed open and empty.
Mm.
I'm just looking down. Sorry, at this spidery fellow in there. And does the coffin look like it's been burst into from inside or outside?
What a good question.
Well,
And then I'll leave it to the expert.
Dankworth, it looks
see
as
here.
though whatever was within the coffin has erupted outwards and
Yes.
dug its way to the surface.
Quite so, because as you can see with the splinters as they come out from the coffin and are plunged into the earth, you see, and it appears that the space is only wide enough for a torso. So you would believe that the unfortunate would have dug their way out with their hands. As you can see, he has not taken the whole grave apart. This has not been a normal exhumation with a spade.
Quite so. And I could add, Dankley, that you figure that this is all very fresh. The earth is wet and recent and still kind of collapsing around you. This kind of happened more than a couple of hours ago. Wally, from your position, while Dankworth sort of talking up at you, you can see there is something glinting inside the coffin, something shiny in there.
I'll point down and say, "What's that glinting away there?"
This is like
Looked it
another...
up, Dankworth. It's made of silver. You would say actually made of pure silver, which undead don't tend to like. Not sterling silver, 100% stuff. So it's a locket, a little clasp locket, opens up on a little hinge.
Yeah.
It's
I think I will offer it out with it on the end of one of the little claws, the reversed claws that seem to tip each of my fingers the very, very furry fingers as I bring the locket up and it just dangles off the claw. I'll leave this for you two, the sentimentalities, while I deal with the real work at hand here.
Wally, you take a look at the locket.
Yeah, I'll. Is it clasped? It'll open.
Yes, it's closed at the moment. On the outside, it says D and A are the two initials, and opens on a little hinge. And there's a wedding picture inside of a tall, blonde gentleman, ramrod back, very straight backed, good looking in a chiseled sort
Germanic
of way.
kind of way.
Germanic sort of way, yes. And standing next to him, an attractive young woman with hair as kind of dark, raven dark as his is blonde. And there's something about the posture. There's none of the stiffness of wedding poses. These two seem, from the picture, you would say, to be truly in love. Wombard, let me just come to you. While this has been going on, your bees have been pestering you. They take so long. Why are humans so inefficient? Be busy. Don't just stand there. Do something.
To shake my head. Not all the humans live in the same house like you do. Give them some time. They disperse themselves. Anyway, I am busy. I'm looking around. I want to see if there's any tracks for where this strange creature has gone to.
Good point. And yeah, there are tracks in the wet dew. You can see that there's muddy footprints. Leave the grave, head to the southern edge of the churchyard, and there's a little bit of mud on the bricks of the low wall where the occupant of the grave clearly kind of vaulted the wall and headed south. Directly south is the village hall and then the bridge. You also notice something else. There's a yew tree a couple of feet to your left, and there is somebody or something on the other side of it. You can hear a sort of muttering to yourself, a little voice going, "Oh God, Oh Jesus! Oh Mary! Oh, not here! I'm not here! Not here! Invisible.
Stick my head round the side of the tree and have a look to see what's making the noise.
There's a very noisome gentleman hiding behind the tree. There's quite an odour coming off of him. Here is somebody who's clearly been to the Charnley Arms and enjoyed what it sells there to great excess last night. In fact, rolling nearby is an empty jug that's giving a reek of stale beer coming off of it. And he looks up at you with an expression of great fright. He's a rather wasted sort of chap. You would think he's late middle age, just about to become properly old, but he has lived too fast and enjoyed himself far too much. And his whole face is a crazy paving stone mosaic of creases and wrinkles. But at the moment, it just gives off slap-jawed terror. Oh! He says, and then gets a bit of a grip of himself. You're not dead!
Who's not dead?
You are. And he reaches out a rather filthy fingernails and prods at you. You're warm. You're alive.
I hope so.
Oh, thank God for that. He falls onto your bare feet and hugs them. Don't let it kill me.
What have you seen to put you such distress?
He starts raving away about the dead, how they climb from their graves. It's the end times. It's just like the good book said, it's because we're sinners. That's what it is. We're sinners, and the dead are rising, and the judgment will follow.
What book?
A good book.
Was it a good book?
What day is it? It's a Friday.
Okay, that's Fridays. Is that Freak's Day? Do I say Freak's Day?
Freak's Day. Okay, nice one. Nice little role-playing touch. Like it. Freak's Day. He says, I need to get home and read my Bible and maybe have a little nap.
One last thing before you go. Which way did the abomination go?
He points southwards towards the bridge. Away it stumbled, and you know what? It was in the very likeness and guise of Alison Weiss's late husband, God rest his soul. Not that we're supposed to say that round here, but, you know, he always treated me pretty fairly and carried a little flask, you know, with some peach schnapps, and sometimes he would give me a taste of. So I always thought I'd have a good word for him, despite him being, you know, German.
Where does the widow Weiss live?
He points to a house on the other side of the bridge, on the south side of the bridge, where there's a row of almshouses that leads out towards Cotter's Meadow, and one of them, the one on the end.
Fantastic. Thank you for your time. And yes, go back and enjoy your Bible.
He goes scrambling over the wall. He heads off northwards. His cottage seems to be on the northern side of the river. His name, by the way, you caught it, Sid.
Perfect.
Sid.
I'll go back and relay the information to Wally and Dankworth.
Okay.
Alison, you say?
Yes, Alison Weiss. She lives in the almhouses on the one on the end.
And I'll point to the gravestone. And then I'll point for DNA and the locket.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about the sum of my reading. That took me quite a long time to work that out.
You didn't learn anything from these Prussians when you had your spat with them when you were just a youth then, Wally. But a little sling.
I don't like to think about that.
Well, it would stand to reason, given my readings of Prussian literature, that this Weiss is also the surname White when it is anglicised.
Okay.
Yes, very true, very true. Oh.
Terrific interest in medicine these Prussians had.
Okay. So then, folks, we've got some information. The dead are rising, or at least one of them is. And you've got some names. It's now about 8 o'clock coming up too. What's our next priority, do you think?
So it's springtime, so we're coming up to like light out now.
Oh yeah. Yes, that haze of dawn has faded. The sun is now up. The village is awake.
So just I'll point out there's a bridge to the right of the church, and maybe with what's going on at the moment and the big metal birds flying over, we might be wise to take refuge in the woods.
Oh, maybe we could take refuge in the church.
Is that allowed?
Sanctuary.
Fancy going in?
He's right. I would think about the woods a little carefully. Because, well, I suppose that the authorities might have it under some watchful eye.
I just assumed you wasn't allowed into the church unless you was a monk.
Oh, no. We've quite progressed since your day.
Okay.
It's all and sundry are allowed now.
Yep. There's the main church doors are closed. There's a little door on the side with a sign on it. It says emergency air raid shelter, and that door is open. Takes you into one of the aisles. The church is a beautiful place. 12th century stone church. Before, in your day, Lombard, it was all wooden built, and there was a big small timber abbey here. So although everybody regards this church as incredibly ancient, it's like this Johnny-come-lately thing as far as you're concerned. A lot of the stained glass windows, you notice, are broken. And on the church door, there's been some painting, which has been scrubbed off, but not very effectively. And you can make out the phrase, "Kraut lover." The doorway marked air raid shelter leads into the main aisle, but there seems to be to the side a little flight of stairs that goes down to a crypt, which is completely in use as an air raid shelter for villagers north of the river. Okay, do we wish to enter? Tell me what you're doing.
I'll just be honest. What's the crowd? Because honestly, the lovers thing matches really well with what we're trying to achieve.
You'd know him as a Prussian, Mr. Darklywood. They're a Germanic fellows from the continent.
Ah, the Germanics got you.
Yeah,
I've heard of them.
Lombard's thinking, that's me.
Some animosity, perhaps.
Yeah. Are we going inside?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Church notice board says that evensong service Friday 5 till 6 p.m. And the choir practice starts at 4:30 before the evensong. There's a nice altar with a pair of silver candlesticks on it. And a lot of papers are sort of scattered around on the lectern and the front pews with musical annotation on them. There's the flight of stairs goes down to the crypt, and yes, one of the stained glass windows has been broken and boarded up.
Well, Wally, they're a pretty prize, aren't they? Just sitting there, silverware.
It's there. The silver's there.
It is. It would look a lot better underneath your filthy jacket.
It certainly wouldn't, sir. And don't you be tempting me such ways.
Well, pragmatism.
I'll point out the candlesticks are of true silver. Again, not sterling. And as such, if used against undead, they would grant a D6. But it would, of course, be stealing holy property.
How is
Anybody
it
looking at anything else?
Just gonna have a look around the altar and just around the music.
Okay. The glamour enables you to read, 20th century English quite well. Yeah, it's this arrangement, what you read in the newspaper, of a choral piece based on a poem by a poet called Dryden, which doesn't mean very much to you. Song for Saint Cecilia's Day. And Cecilia is a name you recognise, Wombard. It's one of those Christian saints that they were making a bit of a fuss about back in your own time. Wherever Saint Cecilia was worshipped, there were always choirs. Very musical saint, Saint Cecilia. And here is the book, as it were, the words of the song, and your eyes are drawn to one little segment in particular, and the language here kind of burns itself into your soul as you read it, and some secret contained in these lines passes from the song, Wombard, and into you. This is what we call elder law, okay? It captures some ancient meaning. I'm just going to put it in chat, but I'll also read it out to you. So when the last and dreadful hour this crumbling pageant shall devour, the trumpet shall be heard on high, the dead shall live, the living die, and music shall untune the sky. Now that is the Elder Law of Wands. It's now in your brain, Wombard. So what you can do on your character sheet is just mark on you're now in possession of a piece of Elder Law of Wands, and you can just call it Song for St. Cecilia's Day or just St. Cecilia. There may be occasions where you might be called upon to use some Elder Law, and this is an example of it. You can choose to use it. And the Elder Law of Wands is often used for anything that involves kind of authority and control and giving orders and making plans or making plans happen or anything like that. It's kind of authority sort of law. And if you choose to use it to compose a glee, to recite it, it'll give you a D10 on a challenge or roll, which is great, but in many cases, probably feels like a bit of a waste of Elder Law, which can be useful for so many other things. But anyway, it's now in your possession. The words don't physically leave the page, but the meaning has passed into you. Other supernatural creatures love Elder Law. It's a sort of currency. And if you teach the song to another supernatural being, it passes from you and into them. So you lose it, they gain it. But it's a great bargaining chip with supernaturals. I know some Elder Law. They collect it, kind of like trading cards.
This song sounds a bit ominous. I'd say.
Kind of end of the world. You know.
Ominous for mortals, for certain, but these things are very intrinsically interesting to the Fae and other oddities. But what I'm more interested in is the crypt, as it were. If that's an air raid shelter, let's not hope that there are any more disturbances in the night. Otherwise, we may walk into some macabre scene of butchery.
You can go to the crypt.
Well, I've got the candlesticks inside my coat, by the way.
That's okay. You've weighed it up and decided best to take the candlesticks.
I'm borrowing them.
Borrowing them, yeah. Right, Dankley, you're going down to the crypt, and down there, there's quite a sizable space. At the back of it, there's some bedrolls. There's a bunch of canned food. There's some bottled water, box of matches, a storm lantern. You know, enough that people can look after themselves while they're down here. But beyond that, it seems to be largely cleared out. But it does look a rather defensible space. You're kind of struck by the idea that anybody coming down here would have to descend that narrow, curving staircase.
Okay, but I've got important questions. I've got really important questions. Given this is a British air raid shelter, I assume that there is in fact tea.
Yes.
And some sort of metal cup or even an empty bully beef tin or something.
Yes.
That could serve as a tea set.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. And we can half-inch some of those matches. Jobs are good.
So you've got matches, you've got metal cups, and you've got tea.
Jobs are good.
Luxury.
Luxury. And Wombard upstairs has got tea bags. But
He-
Wally, here's a little thing for you. While the spider is exploring the crypt, and Wombard is got his nose deep in all of these musical manuscripts. You're aware that there are voices outside of the churchyard coming from over where the grave was disturbed.
Oh, well, securing my candlesticks so that my person. How big are they?
Each of them is about the size of your forearm.
That fit right well in my poacher's pockets. That's absolutely.
Poacher's pockets. Yeah.
I'm gonna nudge Wombard, hopefully not to disturb his bees, and they're having a chat outside.
Have a listen.
Yeah,
So
you can hear
creep
two
over.
voices. Two voices. One of them is saying, "Well, Reverend, it was just how I found it when I came out this morning, and I can't explain it. Do you think it's a miracle?" And then another voice says, "No, I don't think it's anything quite as alarming as that, dear chap. I rather suspect it might in fact be mischief. Now, Ned, don't fret yourself, but just go back to the vicarage and get a nice big spade, and we'll get this covered up, make it all look nice. And I'll have to, I'm afraid, don't have to have a word with Widow Weiss. This is most unfortunate business." That would seem to be the vicar talking. Introductions or spying?
So, should we invite him for a cup of tea? I'm sure I can hear clankering from downstairs. This is where I'm going
Clank,
with that.
clank, clank.
Yeah.
Tea.
Civilization at last.
Do we introduce ourselves to the vicar?
This is a very good question. Why don't you put your player character hats on and slightly meta, although the discussion about strategy.
He's going to be a big hitter and know everyone, basically. But how much do we know? Do we know if there's any involvement there, or he's had some elder law, which he probably is he aware of that? Is he aware of everything else? It's a tricky one. Nothing to say not, but
we are. It's his church, basically. He could pop in at any moment and discover us down here.
Yeah.
So maybe it might just be better if we just make the introductions and I play the bumbling idiot who's just stumbled in to get warm.
perfect.
Which is not that far away.
Not even untrue. They're the best lines, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'll
introductions led by Wally.
Yeah, what I'll do, John, just to say that is I'm going to go downstairs as well, so it's less threatening. So when Wally introduces himself, there's not two gentlemen, there's just the one sort of thing. So I'll go down and assist Dankworth with the tea making.
I'm just half inching the tea. like you're on your own, mortals, as I scuttle up the wall and look for a way out upstairs in the rafters. These church roofs always need fixing. There's going to be a hole somewhere for me to squeeze through.
Almost certainly. So, Wally, let's me and you talk about this little exchange then. You're going to be meeting the Reverend Geoffrey Lumley. Reverend Lumley.
Lumley.
Yeah, who is standing with a look of great consternation over the disturbed grave, while his sexton, Ned, has gone off to fetch the spade. Nearby, there's some gardening shears discarded. It looks as though Ned had come out here to work on the verges.
I'm not after those shears. Don't you worry about that.
So,
it's only a matter of time. They might end up inside the coat as well. Reverend?
Lumley turns to you. He's a spry sort of gentleman. You think he's probably not as old as he looks. I mean, there's a kind of white shock of hair and this sort of beaky professorial look about him, although he's got quite a big paunch on him that would suggest that he's no stranger to an evening glass of port or the fine things in life in his time. And so your first impression is sort of an elderly man, but you think actually it's more just the way he sort of dresses and carries himself. He's probably not much over 40, but was probably the sort of man who was born in his 20s and has spent most of his life in his 30s and is going to go into middle age looking like a very old chap indeed. Anyway, he looks at you over his spectacles and goes, "Oh my goodness! Well, dear chap, are you looking for some solace in the church? Can I help you?"
Yes, I've tried to take sanctuary in such a terrible wailing of the night. I just had to. I hope you didn't mind me taking sanctuary within the church. But
my dear chap, he says, "Of course, I entirely understand. It must have been quite terrifying for you."
No, but I'd have just done a rub my hair. So I just had 40 winks and I overheard your voice. And what's all this here then?
Are you, he says, quite without home or shelter? He's obviously sized you up as a tramp.
I find me home in the shelter where I can.
I see. This is a terrible, terrible time for people like you. You must come, he says, and have some breakfast.
I don't mind if I do.
Come with me, he says. Come. We'll get you all warmed up. We'll find you a proper pair of socks and put a nice breakfast inside you. Two faint creatures inside are like, what? He's getting breakfast?
Breakfast and socks.
Yeah, so Lumley is going to be taking you over to the vicarage. Do you want to tell him about your friend? Or is this like breakfast for one?
This is a solo breakfast.
They've
got their tiffin cake and they've
sharing
got
the sausages and black pudding with anyone.
Absolutely. And this is a sizable tucker, I imagine.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping there might be a pair of boots in it for me as well.
Right. I'm sure there shall be. Over at the vicar's house, the vicarage, a rather little grand wooden building, brick below, wood upstairs. There's clearly a battle going on in the vicarage between two opposed forces. It's not the light and the dark, though. It is man and woman. The vicar intends to spread chaos. Everywhere he would leave books, he would put umbrellas in the bathroom, he would leave galoshes in the kitchen, paperwork on the stairs, with no rhyme or reason. But another force is at work in the house and wants to stack the books up on the bookshelves, put the galoshes in the hallway. And currently there's a kind of uneasy stalemate going on here. And you're wondering who this feminine principal can be, since the vicar certainly does not look to be a uxorious man. But he gets you into the kitchen and then calls up the stairs for somebody called Susanna. And down comes a girl who, again, you initially think must be his granddaughter, but then you do the little mental calculation that Lumley is not as old as he seems. And you think, no, this must be his daughter. And indeed, she has certainly something of his kind of attentive, almost bird-like gestures. She's a pretty girl of, you think, sweet 16, in a house frock, and had clearly been busy upstairs, polishing something, and carries with her a stack of books, which she places into Lumley's hands and says, "Father, there to go on the shelves," and sees that this is a guest for breakfast. She seems not too discomforted by this and directs her father off into his study and then sets about getting bacon and eggs ready for you. She doesn't make much small talk. The vicar talks continuously and not about much. But Susanna works continuously and says very little. But she is an attractive girl, and there are a few more pleasurable things than watching an energetic and attractive young lady preparing you breakfast. So, Wally, we'll just leave you with that pleasant moment, and we'll just skip back to the church.
Absolutely. I'll sit here with a knife
and the wizard are up to.
As I say, I've scuttled off to find some loose a piece of panelling or some shingle or other hole in the leadwork.
Certainly, that's done. Yes.
Well, I want to survey the surroundings and sort of put it to, well, effectively OC. I want to think about if there's anything on the map that doesn't match, or if I can see anything that doesn't match the map.
Interesting thought. Yeah. Where you are,
Yeah, on top of the church.
Yeah. You're looking at the vicarage, and beyond that, you can see the Charnley Arms.
Mhm.
You can make out that there's a big dike that cuts the village off from a big estate beyond of Childick Farm. Yeah. This dike is quite deep, and it's got a sort of low wooden fence on the other side. It would certainly keep anybody from wandering into Childick. It seems to be more to keep trespassers out than to keep farm animals in. But there's a little place that you can notice on the map where a tree has fallen over, and it seems to have brought down the fence and created a little bridge over the ditch.
Is this going to be behind or to the west of the Charnley Arms, where
That's
that
it.
path
That's that spot
terminates?
there. Yeah. On the other side of the road from that, a little path winds towards Charnley Bridge, a wooden bridge, not like the big stone bridge of the old bridge.
Yeah.
And that goes right up to the edge of Charnley Wood.
Right.
There's a little line of trees along that. Yeah, looking around southwards, you can see the farm girls working in the South Acre. There's somebody on Henley Hill wandering about, and the ravens are circling around Grimble's seat in large numbers. Their hoarse and rather hostile croakings float across towards you on the breeze. But from this position, you can see there's something else on top of Grimble's seat. It looks like the standing stones up there.
Oh. Okay. Righty ho. And can I see anything of the military camp, or is that that's all shielded from view? I can't see if there's a lot of activity or
You can't
motor
see the military
traffic
camp
or.
at all. No, you can see the moors that it's built on, but you can't make that anything.
Okay. Yep. Okie dokie. So it's the biggest state of
Except
Childick
here's
Farm.
another thing: a motorbike is entering town from the south, driven by a chap in greens, so a military chap. Seems to have a passenger on the back, and is pulling into the garage repair shop, Dales. Any other activities? The village school is opening up. That's the building on the other side of the road from the vicarage. That's got a lot of gardens all around it with bean poles and all sorts of things. They've clearly been doing that dig for victory thing, and the whole area around the village school has been turned into a gigantic allotment.
Excellent. Good.
Okay, Wombard, what have you been up to?
I guess trying to put some tea together, finding a pot, some sort of something to cook it on, boil it on, boil the water, any water that needs boiling, that kind of stuff, just putting it all together.
Right. Now, if you have, you can have what you call a respite, right? And the great thing about a respite is you get all of your exhausted dice back. So your wits dice and your charm dice that you used in that challenge reactivate and can be used again. That's brilliant. You also get all your resolve back if you used up any resolve. If you use tea with a respite, then once per adventure, you can re-roll your resolve. Now, we haven't in fact worked out what your resolve is at the moment, have we? So we should probably do that. I think that most people are a d6 plus 3. So if each of you wants to roll a d6, that 3, that is.
I did mine earlier. And
Yeah.
I got a wonderful 2, so I sat at 5.
5, and you're currently down on 4. Yeah. You can always have a breather, and that just gives you a single point of resolve back, but you can't then have and I think you sitting watching your breakfast being cooked is a breather. That gets you all of your dice back, or wits, right, all this sort of stuff. And it also gets you 1 point of resolve back. Yeah. So respite is a big thing. It gets all your dice back, and it heals all your resolve. You probably don't need to do that just yet. If you have a tea ceremony with your respite, you also get to re-roll your resolve and choose the higher score. That's the main advantage of having tea. If you want rubbish resolve, then a nice cup of tea can make you roll again. And if you have tiffin with your tea ceremony, then it counts as a free resolve. Free respite, sorry. A free respite is quite a big deal because normally every time you take a respite, the dark advances its power a little bit. But if you have a free respite, it doesn't. Now, Wally, as a Motley, you start every adventure with a free respite on you, as it were. So you can declare any respite to be a free one. Wombod, you as well. So the tea with tiffin would give you a third free respite. So you can be a bit bold with like using things up, so squandering resolve.
Well, the free respite with the tea and tiffin is definitely what we need for a final encounter, really, isn't it?
It is, yes.
So
It's
I
the
think
way
we
you
should
get yourself
sit
ready.
on. We should sit on that, I think.
So
is my
Wombod, you
personal
could
preference.
wander off and be doing something else. What do you fancy?
It's a little bit late in the day, isn't it? Or is
It's about 8:30, man.
Oh, 8:30.
8:30 in
Sorry.
the morning.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I was in the evening for some reason. Okay, so I think I might take a wander to Alison's house.
Okay, right.
But before I do, I would like to use. How can I do a Dwemer, by the way?
You normally need a respite to cast a Dwemer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might have to do a
So you just
hex.
effectively you take off your free respite and cast the spell.
Yeah.
Which Dwemer are you thinking of casting? What do you like?
So Reimer's ragged robe and disguising myself as the vicar to go see Alison.
Yeah. Oh, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Let's use the respite then, and then I'll do the Dwemer to disguise myself as the vicar.
Okay. So you can take off the free respite. You and Dankworth can, because you're kind of sharing that time together. And indeed, Wally, you'll all benefit from it. You get all your resolve back. You reactivate all your dice. Dankworth, you're cunning, aren't you? Yeah.
Yes.
So cunning characters can come up with schemes during your respite. So if there's something that you are planning on doing, you could, or the Wombod's planning on doing, you could come up with a scheme for it, and it'll help with any challenges that come along. If anybody is crafty,
me,
yeah, then you can forage for herbs.
That's what I'm doing in the gutters.
Yep.
Around the top of the church.
Yep.
Well, I was thinking in the gutters. There's all sorts growing in church gutters.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. There's the stuff that comes spilling out, isn't it? And yeah. So subtle characters get to do schemes, cunning characters get to do foraging. So if you want to roll me, Carl, a D6 and a D20.
Oh yeah, happily,
I'll tell you
merrily.
what you find.
And add them together.
No, tell me what the two numbers are.
A 6 for the D6 and a 13.
Ooh, you found one of the last of the Rose of Helborus. Hellebore, it's a winter flower, really. And growing there, tucked away to a cold corner of the church, still in flower. Very nice. The Rose of Helborus is a herb. It's effective against ghosts.
Oh, now that sounds handy.
Doesn't it?
Rose of Helboreth.
Helborus.
Helboros.
Yeah.
Did you say that was if you were crafty as one of your humors and virtues?
You can do that.
I've got craft as well.
Okay, you can have a little look around the church as you're leaving as well. Roll me
So
a
D20 and a D6 was that? Sorry, John.
Yeah.
26.
A 20 and a 6.
I should have done that.
Oh, sorry, I didn't catch you there. Say it again.
Sorry, I could say, yeah, 20 and a 6. So.
Yep, you've got actually an early blooming summer plant here, St. John's wort.
Okay, cool.
St. John's wort is very good for anything to do with animals. Handling them, controlling them, frightening them. Now, herbs can be used to help with spells, any spell. Right? But if you've got the specific herb for the spell, and every spell has got its own specific herb, then that also means the spell doesn't exhaust when you cast it. Yeah. So let me just skip over to Wally while you're thinking about a scheme that you could come up with. Wally, you've been having a fine breakfast. And the vicar has got a pair of old shoes that he puts on. They're a bit pinchy, but and some clean socks. He's delighted to help you out. Nobody in England, what are we fighting this war for if we have people sleeping in hedges and going around barefoot? It's absolutely disgraceful, he says. And then he starts talking to you about, because of course, the English history of caring for the poor and the indigent goes back to the law reforms of Alfred the Great. He's clearly like a truly professional bore, but his interest seems to be local history and folklore.
The churches of St. Cecilia, and I've had problems. I've got very ill-fitting teeth. St. Cecilia. What can you tell me about herself? Is she a local lady?
Oh no, she was a Roman lady, given in marriage to a pagan, as they used to do back in the day, of course. But even at the marriage, she worshipped God by singing hymns in her heart, and then was martyred, of course, for not going along with her horrible pagan ways. Yes, but she's always been a saint for singing and music and the arts, and like a rather lovely saint. Yes, indeed. Come on, let me show you in my study. I've got some very old images of her icons. Yes, and he takes you into his study. He's still kind of wiping the egg off your collars, and you probably can snaffle an extra piece of bacon from the pan.
Absolutely. In the pump.
Yes, he's got quite a well in the study. The feminine principle I described has made no headway at all, and the masculine principle of mess and rapidly skipping about attention rules unchallenged. So there are books and papers everywhere, books splayed open, their spines cracking on chairs, a couple of books inside other books, a table with a missing leg propped up with books, and papers here, there, and everywhere. While the vicar searches for his little information about St. Cecilia, you can see there's a big old map on his desk of the village, and several scraps of paper written in the vicar's hand about local landmarks. What's your interest?
I'd like to see when he gets on this icon out of St. Cecilia, and I'd like to see if it bears any resemblance to a whittled woman.
To which?
The whittled woman from the Vision.
Right. Here's an interesting thought, that when you think of things like that, no, the St. Cecilia icon doesn't. St. Cecilia is always sort of pale with eyes upraised and given over to contemplating higher things. But the straight-backed carved figurine of the kind of queen who resembles anybody that you've met in the village, it resembles the young woman in the kitchen, whose straight back you got to consider while she was working on frying your eggs. Yeah, you think that this carving is definitely a young queen.
Okay, I'll take that one under advisement, and I'll have a look at a map which is poured out, and I'll just pump it. Like, what can you tell us about Grimble's Seat?
Oh, Grimble's Seat, he says, yes, a high holy place, a cathedral to the pagans, those stones up there. I've got something about it here, he says, pulling pieces of paper out of shoes and umbrellas, and finding one of them that says, yes, look at this, there was a battle there in ancient times, and defenders on the hilltop resisted an army who had to approach them up Grimble's Stair. Stone staircase, you to say, and they resisted the army until all of them were slain. Here it is. Listen to this. 3 times 30 proud ones, together armed, sorrowful, they did not return. That's how I'm translating it anyway. Their lord fed black ravens among the stones. It's Old Welsh, you see, Old Welsh. Now, of course, while he's reading this out, once again, you're rather startled by the echoing resonance of these words that mean far more to you than they do to the vicar. This, again, is elder law. It's the elder law of swords, though, of battle, conflict. So I'll add that into the chat. There it is. Siege of Grimble's Seat, Elder Law of Swords. And now it belongs to you. It's in your mind. You can add it to your character sheet.
And Grimble, he was a lord, was he?
Well, I think Grimble is probably a modern devolution of the original thing. Grima is a Norse term meaning hooded, and could be a reference to the Norse god Odin, perhaps. So Grima might indicate that the Danish invaders found a cultic use for the site, but it's, I believe, considerably older than the Dane law. Now, have a look here. One other thing you've noticed about the map, by the way, is that in the Charnley Wood, which you've always just known as a trackless forest, there's a house. And on this old map, yeah, it's labelled Charn House.
We live in the middle of a forest.
Oh, look at that! Well, of course, it wasn't all forest then. It was the Charn House was well, very sad tale. Burned down, just burned down. Was burned down by the last wife, the lady of Charn House. So the story goes, burned it down in retribution of her husband's terrible infidelities.
Oh,
but as is the way of these dramatic and cruel actions, it rather redounded on her, for she perished herself in the flames, along with, and this is the tragic part, very tragic, along with her poor children, you see, yes. And whereas her horrible husband, the Lord of Charm, got away scot-free, a faithful servant woke him, and he was dragged coughing and spluttering from the blaze, and so he wasn't harmed at all. It's very sad, but I think probably folklore. I would detest the historicity of it. But I'm told the ruins of the house can be found in the wood, yes.
Oh, so this was a while ago then, was it?
Oh, I would say. Well, the ballad I can date back to 1814, but I strongly suspect the events must be 17th century.
This 3 times 30 proud ones. What does that mean?
Well, I think that these old Welsh tales have a lot of formulaic expressions. I wouldn't read too much into it, but there were 90 defenders holding the summit against a much larger army.
Sorry, relief as he did the maths for me there.
Good. I'll leave you pondering that. Nick, you were going to go as well as Wombat over to see Alison Rice, and Carl, do you think there's a scheme that might help him out here?
Well, I think scheming is the thing to do. It depends on what you want to achieve, because we will fix a scheme and we will get free die for it, dependent on the wits of myself, effectively, which will be a D6. As long as we stick to the plan and we don't the die is there and available free for challenge rolls until we deviate from it. So what is it that you think we're aiming to achieve?
I think at the moment it's just going over and investigating Alison as the vicar. I think we should inform her of the breakout from the coffin. I'm just wondering if she knows.
Do you think you should tell her that her husband has reanimated and one's not?
No,
or just that somebody has messed
no.
the grave.
There's been a disturbance with the coffin. By the way,
I think
she's back.
I think I'd be the one to do that, as I grip a hand and tell him that he's joined the ranks of the unliving and must be laid to rest.
The idea of that, then we'll see whether she knows or not. I guess a scheming thing though would be you could go off and investigate,
I
in
think
the shadows while I'm distracting her to see if he is there.
I reckon if you do the human bit, I'll do the monstery poking about in shadowy corners bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that all
Perfect.
sound good?
Legitimate.
Is that schemy enough? Or do you want something a little more
No, that sounds
specific?
great. That sounds perfect. So,
Okie
Nick, are
dokie.
you going to cast this Dwemer?
I am indeed, yes.
Okay. Right. And this will probably be just about the last thing that we'll get done this evening. It's 9:20. So we'll do this little encounter and then we'll knock it on the head and do some rewards. So okay then. So this is a petty spell, which is quite straightforward, but you're doing it as a Dwemer during the response to get some kind of slightly more dramatic effect to imitate an actual person. It's threat level 0, so you only have to make one challenge roll to do it, and it's only rolling a D4 peril, so you're unlikely to lose very much resolve at all. It ought to be a slam dunk, really. It can't go too wrong because you know. Well, how much resolve have you got?
I did well on that, so 9.
Wow. Okay then. So the most it's going to take off you is 4 resolve. So this should be an absolute dream. So you are casting the spell, and you're going to use something to resist this D4 worth of peril. I mean, you could say, "Hey, they just hate me. I'll lose the resolve. I don't care." But because there's a scheme going, you could use Cole's scheme die for resisting the peril.
Mm-hmm.
That's a D6, is it, Cole?
Yeah, that's my wits.
Yep. So why don't I use that?
Okay. So just 1d6, or do you cast
1d6. Again, if you think you've got a trait that's relevant, you could roll that as well, and you choose the highest score. You can always roll your own doom die, and that's because you're under oath. I would roll your doom die. Yeah, put your doom die in there too. That's a D4.
Okay, sure. So total of 3, 2 on the doom die, 1 on the d6.
Okay, it's just the highest one I'm looking for. What's the highest one?
2, sorry, on the doom die.
2. Okay, I rolled a 3, so you're going to lose a single point of resolve.
Okay.
But that's all. There are no hazards. Sometimes when you try really difficult spells, if you lose any resolve at all in the challenge, then something bad happens. All that happens here is get a point. Oh, and you have to spend a point of resolve just to start casting the spell. So you're 2 points of resolve down.
Sure.
Good. And whoop, 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 you take on the outer form of the Reverend Lumley. His voice, his doddering mannerisms, his compulsions to leave things in silly places. It's quite a powerful glamour. You really do seem to be him and act the way he acts. And so while he is showing Wally around his study, having forgotten that he's supposed to go and see Alison Dice, you're going to be heading off there with Dankley and accompanying you. He'll separate at the door, leaving you to knock. And Dankley, how are you going to access the house?
Well, through I can case the joint, really, can't I? So
yeah,
I'll
it's
find
a
any
row
point
of little
of...
cottages. This is the largest cottage on the row, but it's on the
Mhm.
end, so it's an end terrace.
Yeah,
You've got to go up the water spout. This is the only way.
well, yeah, like but what I'm wondering is the chimney lit? Because a cold spring morning, early spring morning.
Question, I think. And in fact, I can answer actually. There's things reason. No, it's not. No.
Oh, in we go.
Yeah.
In we go.
You're
Tick tick
slithering
tick tick.
down the chimney.
Oh, of course I am, because I can change my size,
Yeah.
so I can fold myself into tiny little gaps and squeeze my way down, John McClane style.
You can. Yeah, that's your thing. So
Ho,
while
ho,
he
ho.
is descending the chimney, you're Nick knocking on the door, and it is opened by a woman you immediately recognise her. She's the woman from the locket that Wally was looking at. Older, you think 10 years on from the time when that photograph was taken, but still a striking, good-looking woman with that very arresting kind of dark, almost blue hair, which has a kind of engaging habit of kind of tumbling continually over her right eye. She's again wearing a sort of house coat. She's clearly been, getting the house ready in the morning. And as you knock on the door and she approaches, you can hear her saying, "Digby, if you have forgotten your and then when she opens the door, realizes that it's the vicar. Oh, Reverend, I thought it was Digby. I thought he's at school, of course, and I thought he'd forgotten his lunch.
Afraid, alas, afraid not. I've come to give some terrible news, Mrs. Wise. It's horrific. May I
You better step in. Terrible news, you say. Oh, I've wanted just to say, Reverend Lovell, that the support that you've shown from my family has been a marvelous thing, and I know that it's cost you. I saw that broken window a couple of nights ago, and what they wrote on the door. It's well, what I'm saying is, you didn't have to, and you did, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart.
I'll just put my hand on her shoulder and go, my child, it is my pleasure. As servant of the Lord, we always issue good graces to all our children.
Wombard's best impression of what sort of thing Christian said.
In the corner of...
Should we eat your Lord and drink his blood? That is the thing, isn't it?
in the corner of your eye, as well, as you put your hand and you scan the room, you can see there's soot bloody everywhere. Like across the centre of the room, there's a great smear of
I was
soot.
apologise for this. Digby was supposed to clean the fireplace and get a fire going before he went to school. I don't know what that boy is doing. Off he ran, and he's been gone most of the morning. Soon he didn't go back to bed after the air raid. Instead, he turns up soaking wet, as if he's been crawling through wet grass. Well, at least he's got a friend. That's all I can say. Actually, no, her son's. I'm making a little mistake. Her son's name isn't Digby. Her son's name is Wally. Yeah. Digby is her son's friend. Wally and Digby went off this morning somewhere.
Well, that's not confusing at all.
Not confusing at all.
At all.
Yeah.
So
well, her son
Wally.
is Walter. She calls him Walter. But
so what I'll say to her is, I think we'll need a seat for this one. This one might be quite distressing. So. Right. I'll lead her into the living room, trying to bat away the soot.
Oh, she'll take you into the front parlour, which is only
fantastic.
ever used for visits by vicars.
So I'll let her sit.
And she'll sit you down, and she'll bring out a little plate of jam tarts.
Oh, fantastic! What a win!
Damn.
So I'll start off and go. I won't beat around the bush, as they say. There's been some vandalism at the church, as you're aware of, but there's been some horrific vandalism. This morning we came across your poor husband's resting place, and it had been attacked. It's been vandalised, and God forbid, there's even items missing. We have mentioned this to the local police and even the military because of what these strange occurrences over the past few weeks with sightings of German paratroopers, etc. We don't know what to assume, but I wanted just to come over and personally tell you that we are looking into this and we will find out who did this heinous act.
You will see a rather marvellous moment here, but Alison digests what you've said about her husband's grave, and although you put it rather delicately, you can see her imagination working and her eyes widen as she grasps the implication about what's been done. She stands up and turns her back on you, goes over to the fireplace. There's still some scuffling noises coming from up the chimney somewhere, but we won't draw attention to that. And rests her hand on it and puts another hand over her mouth. And maybe her shoulders shake fractionally, and then she straightens and gets a grip on herself. Your bees settle down in their little hive, except a couple of them that will say to you things like, see, that's the way to do it, self-control. That's what you need more of, self-control. And then she will turn to you and say, Reverend Lumley, will you find the people who did this?
Yes, I will.
You almost have no choice but to say that. It's true. This is not a no, by the way. I'm just saying this as a GM. She's said that in a moment of great passion. It doesn't count as the fulfillment of a no, but it will count as breaking a ban if you decline. Right, I'm just going to skip away very briefly to Darkly, You
Mhm.
found her room, still kept as, with the marriage bed and photographs of her husband, Dieter. There's there's a little plaque on the wall that he was a surveyor and appears to have moved. She was born in the village, but they've moved back here. And there's some diary entries that suggest, as you quickly flip through, at the start of the war, they returned to her home to be closer to her family. But it appears that her family were aged and they've died too. There's clearly been a lot of anti-German sentiment. You've also got her son Walter's room, which has got a model aircraft hanging from the ceiling, a Spitfire, very similar to the one from the Conundrum.
Mhm.
He's got a lot of scribbled notes and doodles. One of the doodles, it's a very recent one, grabs you. It's a picture of a man with a long beard and a big smear of red crayon across the side of his face.
What colour is the beard?
Blonde.
Righty ho ho. That's our warrior. That's our quarry.
And at that moment, there's a hammering on the door. Dum, 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 dum. And Alison says, "So many visitors," and runs to the door and opens it. And there's a gentleman outside leaning on the lintel. A squat, burly-looking fella with a kind of mop of hair that can't help but kind of flop low over his brows, giving him a slightly kind of Neanderthal kind of appearance. He's quite well dressed in high boots, waistcoat, and shirt, and yet nothing about him sits kind of right. There's a sort of disarray, as if he meant to get dressed well, got halfway through the process, and lost patience with it. Everything about him seems to be impatient. Alison's shoulders sag a little bit at the sight of him, and he says, "Mrs. Weiss," and fixes her with a strong, dark eye under his beetle brows. She says, "Mr. Childick, really, you can't keep coming around here. I've already said." Now, at any point, Nick, as the guest in the parlour, you can come out and intervene. Of course, you are the vicar to everybody who sees you. Yeah. But darkly, you'll hear this upstairs, plain as anything. Now, there's no reason, says Mr. Childick, that we should be foes. Alison, may I call you Alison? This is, I regret, I said some harsh things about your late husband and your lad, and I think we can let bygones be bygones. And Alison says, "Well, I'd like nothing more than to be friends." And Eustace says, "Well, I'd like nothing more to be friendly." And he steps in closer to her.
I'll just emerge from the parlour and go, "Is everything all right, Alison?"
And this will be our final little challenge of the session, right? And you're going to have lots of dice you can roll for this one. This should be a dead easy challenge. But Eustace Childick is another one of these problematic characters in the village that could end up exposing you for what you are. So, threat level 1, we're going to have to make 2 rolls against him.
Okay.
Yeah? Rather than just the one you had to make against the boy.
So there's that 2 different dice, sorry.
Yeah, because normally when you use a die, it exhausts. The only dice that don't exhaust are trait dice, which you can just use over and over. So, tell me what the drama's like, and then tell me what dice you use. So basically, I say this sort of thing to him, or I do these things, and I'd like to roll this dice.
I'm going to use charm and virtue because I think you can use both. In being a vicar, you can get away with both. Virtue being his religion and standing,
Well, hold
and
up on
charm
virtue dice. They're normally just used with special powers. But
oh, sorry. Okay.
So charm would definitely be the thing. Yeah.
Then it'd have to be wits then.
Yeah. So because you are, and of course you've still got the scheme dice. That's usable. You can always use your doom die on any roll. Yeah, the scheme die is still floating about.
I'll use this. I'll use the scheme die as well. Then sorry, because I thought that because I'd already used it previously, it was used.
No, it refreshes after the challenge finishes. So
Okay,
it comes back again for
fantastic.
the next challenge. So tell me what you say to him.
So
Now, Carl, you're kind of outside of this challenge, but you can support.
I can, yeah.
If you want to, offer Nick a die, so if you do something that influences what happens, you can say, well, I'm going to offer you this die and to represent your kind of interference that you're running. So, Nick, how are you going to handle Eustace Childick?
Sorry, so is he just put his does he look shocked, or does he just
he looks somewhat disappointed to see you, and his face hardens. He's obviously no friend of the vicar's. He was stepping in close to Alison and trying to get his hand around her waist, and she's got her hands up on his chest and is trying to push him back.
Just walk into the room and go, Eustace, getting a bit close for comfort there, I see.
I think that's probably charm you rolled it there by the sound of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm rolling a d6 peril for him.
Okay.
Right. You can roll the charm. You can roll anything else you want with it. You can roll the scheme dice with it. Yeah.
Scheme was
you can roll your
D6.
doom dice with it.
Scheme was D6 as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. And you pick the highest number.
Okay, so I'm gonna go charm, scheme, and doom dice.
But remember, we're going to have to do this twice.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So on the stuff you roll, you can't roll again on the second.
Got you.
So
Sorry.
Two attempts versus his power, 2 threat levels.
Okay, so I'll do charm first, and then scheme dice and doom afterwards.
Okay, then. So it's good. Your charm versus his hostility.
So I rolled a 3.
Right, and I rolled a 4. So you're going to lose a point of resolve. And his little hazard is that he's shrewd. In other words, when he notices you, he will really notice you. There's a kind of restless hostility about him. Now, normally, I would have him make a glamour roll to see if he sees through. But you're, of course, protected by this gleamer that makes you look like a vicar. So do you know what? I'm just going to scratch that hazard this time. But if you lose resolve to him on the second little encounter we make, then he will get suspicious that you're not being quite vicarly enough. And maybe he'll see through you. So he sort of backs up and says, "Oh, very lovely. I didn't expect you to be here." And Alison sort of looks between you both and says, "This doesn't have anything to do with you, does it, Eustace?" And Eustace says, "I don't know what you're talking about." And so what's your involvement in this? They're starting to come to blows. Alison puts her hands on her hips. "If you've had anything to do," she says, "with my husband's grave," Eustace puts his hands up and says, "What are you accusing me of? I didn't come here to be accused of things." "Oh yeah, what did you come here for then?" Voice is getting raised. What's your involvement in this going to be?
Well, I was going to hop, skittle, and jump out of the window. Did he bring a load of goons with him?
No, he's by himself.
Okay, right. Well, I'll get a decent distance.
Yeah.
And I'll offer some aid in the form of some might, which is just a D4.
Yeah.
But with my many hands, I can add an edge to that or boost it to a D6.
Yeah.
You know, but I can hock a stone at him.
Yeah.
Or
just disturb some slates from the ceiling, from the roof.
Yeah, or the windows to seem like, you know, to
Sounds
drive good. Alison into even more of a rage.
Yeah. So, Nick, are you going to tell this fellow to get lost? Are you going to accuse him of anything? Whatever you do, it will be like playing on the vicar.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm thinking of.
Do you want to take a very high hand here and commit the vicar to something like, you know, challenge him to a duel?
I'll just say, I'll just walk forward and say, probably not the time now, Eustace, because Mrs. Weiss had some unfortunate news, shall we say. Maybe pop around another time.
Sounds very good. Yeah. good. So you're going to be using your scheme dice?
Yes, Scheme and Doom.
Scheme and Doom. And Carl, what are you offering?
Well, I can either offer you a D4 with an edge or a D6. I think the D4 with an edge would be best.
Yeah. So you're going to be rolling the scheme dice,
Yep.
your Doom dice, and Cole's giving you an extra D4.
What's your oath is you've got an oath, so your Doom is a D6, is it?
No, it's his traits get bigger under oath. Yeah.
Yeah.
The main thing about being under oath is that his Doom dice doesn't automatically grow if he rolls his highest number.
Oh, okay.
Unless he wants it to. You kind of want it to. So let me know if you roll 4 on your Doom dice.
Will do. So first off the D6, I rolled a 4.
Yep.
First roll of the D4, which is the Doom dice, I rolled a 4. So
okay, so your Doom dice can grow to be a D6. And I'll discuss the implications of that with you in a moment.
And last but not least, the additional dice from Carl is also a 4.
So what's the best score?
4. 4 of them were 4s.
And the peril here is only 1. So you don't lose any resolve, and Childek beats a retreat. Scowling and muttering as I've been accused of things which nothing to do with me. Just came out and be friendly. Got a fellow be friendly, and Alison will slam the door on him and thank you personally for being there. Now, there was a notch which reduces the overall success of the challenge, but you added an edge, so that balances out. We're not going to be seeing Childek again for a while. Well done. He's gone. Alison's reassured and is deeply grateful for you for standing up to her, for her. You know what? We're going to be bringing the scenario to a halt here. We've got quite a bit of information. We know about Alison and Eustace Childek and, his harassment of her. We've got the boy, Walter, and his picture upstairs. We've got lots of folkloric information about the house in Charnley Wood, about standing stones on Grimble's seat. We've picked up a couple of bits of elder lore, as so far we've not caused any particular trouble with the dark. Everything is going well, and we'll stop things there. But we do need to roll a couple of quick d20s for our prizes. So I think everybody should get a prize for their fantastic role playing because everybody was absolutely brilliant. Do you want to roll a d20? Each of you. What do we got? We'll start with Carl.
That's fine. Well, I got the full.
20, yes.
Yeah.
Okay then. So make a little note, tick on your character sheet. Your first prize is number 20, the Fool. When you turn that in, you can get any benefit at all from the list, but at the cost of increasing your Doom die. Nick, do you want to roll a d20?
I did indeed. I got 10, so that is Fortune.
It is Fortune. That enables you to gain a new humour to become, for example, crafty or martial or renowned or subtle, which opens up a new kind of skill pathway for you. If you to mark that on your character sheet. And Simon?
I got a 14, which gives me patience.
It does. That means you start next adventure with a free respite. 2 rather than 1. And I think I will give everybody a second prize as well, just because this was our first time all playing the characters. So give me one more roll. Or draw.
I've got the Magician or Mage 1.
Yep. Okay. Number 1, that lets you advance your virtue quality die, which is probably not terribly useful for you. Nick?
I got number 12, the Gibbet.
Yes, that lets you gain one of your gentle virtues, which are like the special powers of your character class. That's quite nice. And Simon?
Number 2, the Witch.
The Witch. That lets you advance your wits quality dice, making it 1 size bigger. However, that will be very expensive to do. Now, what you can now do, if you want to, is turn in your rewards. And here's the thing you can do, right? You could simply discard all your prizes and increase your resolve bonus for the next adventure, the next session we play, by the number you discarded. So you could chuck them both and basically say, for the rest of this session, my resolve is a d6 plus 5, and I get 2 resolves straight away. That's quite nice. But then those cards are gone, and they don't do anything else for you. Or you could claim a prize, right? You choose one of the cards that you've gotten. You say, I want to claim that prize. You then roll your reward die, which is a d4, and you are trying to get a certain number. If you're trying, for example, Nick, you got that one that says gain a gentle virtue, didn't you? What was that?
Is that the gibbet or the fortune? Sorry.
Gibbet, yeah. You need to get 3. So you need to roll 3 or 4 on your reward die to be able to get that. If you fail, then you don't get any reward, but your reward die gets the size bigger, goes up to a d6.
Okay.
So next time, you become a bit more likely to make it. After you've made the dice roll, you can choose to spend Elder Law, if you've got any, to add +1 for each Elder Law you burn. But, the Elder Law might be useful in the adventure, so think about that.
Okay.
So what do you fancy doing? Does anybody think, I'll just turn it in and get some bonus resolve, first of all? Or does anybody think, no, I want to go for one of these actual increases?
I'll go for an increase. I'll go for the gibbet one.
The gibbet? Okay, then. So chuck both of those cards. Roll your reward die.
I got a 2. No,
So
not this time.
you could burn that bit of Elder Law.
I'll hold off, I think.
You'll hold off on
It's
that.
quite valuable.
So make a little note now that your reward die is a d6. So at the end of the next session, if you are in a similar position, you'll be rolling a d6, which makes it a bit more likely that you'll get the number you're looking for. Simon, what do you think?
Yeah, I think I will lose. I think I'll roll. I think
Yep.
I'll.
Which one are you trying to get?
The witch.
The witch, to improve your wit's quality die. What is your wit's quality die?
Oh, it's D8, so that's why
You'd need to get an 8 to do that. So it's not going to happen, but at least it will increase your reward die to a d6 for next time.
Let's give it a go anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a D4 and I get 3.
Okay then. So you don't get the prize, but your reward die goes up to a d6. So at the end of the next session, there's a slightly greater chance that you'll get a prize you're looking for. Carl?
I'll take the full.
Okay then. You can take any benefit you like,
Mm-hmm.
but you'll increase your doom die into the bargain.
Sounds fine.
Do you fancy one of those gentle virtues, a Tom Noddin gentle virtue?
Ooh.
One of the extra Tom Noddin powers?
I mean, that doesn't sound too bad, does it?
And you just need a 3 or 4 on a d4?
Yeah, why not? Let's give that a crack then. Oh, you still have to roll for it?
You still have to roll for it.
Oh, I thought you were just giving it because you're
No,
increasing the doom die.
You can choose it, but you still
A
need to roll
3.
it. There
So
you go.
what does that earn me?
So, well, your doom die goes up to a d6.
It does,
And
sadly.
you get one of the Tom Noddin bonuses.
Ooh. I will decide on that for next
They
time, I
include
think.
such things
Rather
as
than pick under the gun.
further hands at work. That gives you even more arms to use. Yeah.
Brilliant. Sounds great.
Blood Guzzler, which doesn't sound like your thing. Lethal
No,
Mob
not
lets
really.
you marshal.
Mhm.
Nattercap lets you speak with spiders. Warp and
Oh,
Web
that's a
gives you a
good.
second weaving. And Web
Ooh.
Spinner lets you actually create webs.
Yeah.
Have
Well,
a bit of a
like
think about
half
Yeah.
of those sound great, don't they?
that. Yeah.
Nattercap is invaluable.
Yeah.
That's a real useful thing, that is.
Yeah. So,
Um,
Nick and Carl, you've both increased your Doom die to a d6. This is great because you can roll a Doom die with anything. It can only go up. Nick, your one went up because you rolled its maximum number, so that's not going to happen again this adventure. You can roll it with impunity after that. If your Doom die ever goes past the d12, then you'll have to retire your character under tragic or epic circumstances. So the trick normally is to try and get it as big as possible, and then hold it there. You know. So the other problem is having a big Doom die as you roll into the start of the adventure to see how involved the dark is with you. So the bigger your Doom die, the more likely the dark is to be quite advanced in its plans at the start of the adventure. Okay then, enough explanation from me. We are finished here just now. It's fade to black. to be continued. Thank
It's
you
a
ever
good
so much,
night
chaps.
from me.
Thank you.
Sure.
And it's
Did you
good
enjoy?
night.
It was good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant session.
Yeah.